Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here's your host, Father J. Friedel.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Faith in Our Hometown. Faith in Our Hometown, to this point in time, has been a 6-year adventure that began because somebody had some dreams. And by the time you see this, it'll probably be the end of August, or almost the end of August, because of different things that are going to preempt the show. And I'm recording this really actually now in the beginning of June. But by the time you see it, it'll be the end of August, and I will have been gone for about a month and a half, at least from the Joplin area. I'll be in the Branson area working at that point in time. So, but we're going to talk a little bit this morning about the history of the show, what we've been through, and we're going to be basically doing a little reminiscing this morning. So if you don't want to see me a little probably teary-eyed or talking about the past, better find a different show. But otherwise, stick around, and I'm going to be right back with you after this Mercy Minute, okay?
Cancer is the leading cause of cancer deaths in the U.S., and now we have an effective tool to screen for it. A low-dose CT uses a lower amount of radiation than a standard chest CT.
Breathe in.
Better detailed pictures than a chest x-ray of small abnormal areas of the lung. A person must be between 55 to 77 years old, asymptomatic, which means they don't have any symptoms such as coughing up blood, chronic cough, shortness of breath, unusual weight loss, or any other worrisome symptoms. They must also be a current smoker or have quit within the past 15 years, also must have a 30-pack year history or more, which equates to smoking 1 pack a day for 30 years, or 2 packs a day for 15 years. People generally avoid these scans, possibly due to fear of what could be found. Like many other cancers, if we can detect lung cancer early, it could be very treatable and life-saving.
Well, again, thanks for being with me for what may well, I know it's going to be probably my final Sunday morning of Faith in Our Hometown. I really have to tell you real honestly, at the time of recording, I'm not sure what Mercy is going to do with the show yet. We feel like we've gotten a great viewership, and many of you are so faithful and wonderful about tuning in. I keep trying to convince them that they need to start with a new host and to go forward. As you know, my friend Aaron Brown, who was my fill-in host for a period while I was gone, he's also left town. And so he's up in the Kansas City area. I'm going to be in the Branson area. We don't have another minister that we would, can kind of just like slide into the slot. And so what we're hoping is that Mercy will come up with a new host and that the show will continue. And you're going to probably find out next Sunday morning when you go to tune in. But I do hope that Mercy kind of grabs hold of this and finds a new host for you, and you can continue on. But I wanted to spend my last show talking a little bit with you all about, the history of the show, why we decided to do it in the first place, and how grateful I am for being able to talk with all of you on a broader basis than I would just on a regular Sunday morning in my own church, because we transcend some of that. I will tell you that about 6 or 7 years ago, we began to start talking about the possibility of doing a show like this. There were probably 4 people that were fairly instrumental in doing that show, and one of the big push was Alzar and his wife Chris, and a couple of friends of theirs, John and Tammy Woods, who were some of our producers, our first sets of producers, if you will. Al had been in radio and television and music promoting business along with his wife Chris, and Tammy had worked with them for some point in time. John came into it somewhat else. John always worked for Empire Electric, but the deal was that we came about wanting to do this because of conversations that we'd had about issues that were a little controversial, and in terms of having some of our conversations with them even about what began to kind of somehow maybe get them to look at an issue differently. And they said, you're really good at this, and you don't get defensive, and you do all that stuff. And I said, well, I've had a lot of practice through the years of not just yammering at people or pointing my finger at them or saying, you got to do it this way, otherwise you're going to hell or whatever, fill in the blank, all right? So Al and Chris, went to John Hoffman, who's the director here, at KODE, and they said, we got this idea for a show, and John wanted to do a similar show for a long time here at the TV station, but they could never figure out who or what or how. And so they said, well, what about the possibility of doing a show where we would have differing opinions? We'd take a topic and we'd have differing opinions about, abortion, somebody pro, somebody con, death penalty, somebody pro, somebody con. But we'd pick a topic and come in and do it. And so we had originally envisioned a kind of like and some of this is going to send some of you into the stratosphere, but kind of like a Bill Maher show. Not that on one edge or the other, but basically a point where you could actually bring two different guests together to actually, where I could actually, kind of referee, if you will, or host a civil discussion between all of those folks, so that we could hear both sides, and that both sides might take a step together on maybe moving forward in a direction. I said, I'm not out and never have been out on the show to change everybody's mind, but I have strong opinions, and most of my guests have strong opinions about whatever it is that they wanted to come on or talk about or whatever they're passionate about. And again, I'm not trying to change that. I can't change some of the things that make Republicans passionate and some of the things that make Democrats passionate. I can't change some of the things that make Catholics passionate and Methodists passionate. I can't change some of the things that make those on the left passionate and those on the right passionate. And that's not my job. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to model for everybody that you could come together and still have those conversations, even holding different opinions that might be farther apart than we would typically think. If we had the conversation and at least learn to respect and hear where the other person was coming from, that maybe we might take a step toward each other. And certainly me being a person of faith, I wanted faith to be a part of the discussion, not just left on the periphery of the discussion. I don't expect somebody to park their faith at the door when they come into the studio. I expect them to bring it with them, and then let's have those discussions. So some of our shows became ideologically there. I will tell you that after we really thought we were going to do a show like that where we were going to be able to edit and to do all those things. And when we came in, we realized that at the price they were going to be able to do it for, we weren't going to be able to do any editing. And so the first night that we were recording TV, I was back to my good old days of being an undergrad and doing TV production where we didn't have all the editing capabilities and we just had to do it as though it were all live. And they said, oh my gosh, are you going to be able to do this? And I said, I'm going to be really nervous for a while, but I did it back in the 80s. I can do it now. What the heck? And so we just went ahead and sailed ahead that first night. And recorded TV with guests who were passionate about what they wanted to talk about. So some of our shows through the years have been ideological shows of having opinions about a social issue. Some have been simply just hearing how different believers of different faiths see the world. So we've had folks with lots of different Christians on the show because, let's face it, that's mostly what we are here in the Joplin area. But we also wanted to make sure that we had some other folks that were not Christian. So we've had our Jewish cousins and our Muslim cousins and our, some Baha'i. We've had Hindu believers. We've had all kinds of folks from non-Christian backgrounds that also came onto the show. And we just wanted to find out, well, how does a person who labels themselves this way think? How do they see the world? How do they see God? How do they see God working in the world? And how do they still see themselves as members of this greater Joplin community? All the way from Pittsburgh, Kansas to Knoll, Missouri, or all the points in between. How do we do some of that in a way that respects each other's viewpoints without without us necessarily having to give up our own, but being able to do that in a way where I can at least hear what the other person believes. And I might from time to time say, wow, that's really different. I don't know that I could see it that way, or I don't know that I could believe it that way, or I don't know that I could practice it that way or follow it that way. But still, respect that other person's viewpoint and not have to call them names or throw something at them or do whatever, or try to embarrass them on the air. I just wanted to have the conversation. So that, friends, is how Faith in Our Hometown got born, okay? That's how we began to start to do the show that we did. Some of that was, and I've never been afraid of that part of the conversation, and I hope that after 6 years, you're not afraid of that conversation either. And that maybe we can learn how to hold each other in a little even higher respect. Again, not necessarily giving up our own beliefs, or not necessarily just changing our mind, every time we watch a show. I mean, I certainly don't change my position every time I have a guest who comes on. But nonetheless, I learn how to listen better. I learn how to respect the way somebody else sees the world. And even though I may not change my position, I've at least heard somebody else out and made a space for them so that in having the conversation, we'll at least be able to take a better step toward each other. Now, the reason why this 6-year experiment I think has been fun is because I think our world has gotten to the point where they're listening to each other even less than they did 6 years ago. And that makes me kind of sad. We've reached a point where, in our own conversations here in our country, the right and the left have a hard time just even sitting at the same table together. I don't like the way Republicans and Democrats treat each other. They've always disagreed with each other, but when did we get to the point where we stopped trying to find the common good between both those parties, and just were really, I think that we waste a whole lot of time in our political conversations by just trying to obstruct the other one. What would happen if instead of just obstructing the other one, we figured out how we could maybe do something for the common good together, and reach more compromises, or to come at something that we know would be better for us as a state or as a community or as a country together at the same time because of those conversations. I think we have become more and more polarized, and we've become much more opposed to each other just before we even get to the conversation. And when we start the conversation that way, we're never going to figure out how to take more steps toward each other or take steps toward the common good unless we figure out how to hear each other and recognize the human in each of us and recognize the person of faith in each one of us. And even when we come to different conclusions, I just think we need a whole lot more of that in the world than less. So I really do want to thank, at the end of this first part, because we're getting ready to cut for a quick break here, but I want to thank Alan Chris Czar for having the idea. I want to thank John Hoffman and all the folks here, all of our teams, all of our production crews, all the folks that have worked technically to help make sure the show gets recorded for you all the time. And I want to thank my first producers, John and Tammy Woods, who helped for so many years to do that. And then they wanted to step aside. And then I took on Riley Hartwell. And then he's more recently been joined by Steve Urey. And Riley's mom helped for a little while, Julie Hartwell, and we had a couple other people who were helping just a little bit here and there, but really, those have been the stalwarts, okay? And so I just want to say thanks to all of them for coming up with the idea and allowing us to do this, for the privilege of doing this for these last 6 years. So we're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute. Don't go away.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
Okay, so during the break, first of all, that wasn't a Mercy Minute, and you know that. You'd think after 6 years of doing this, I'd get better at this. But no, that was the quick break. So, but I do want to also, there was one person I left out on the production crew, Mark Shipley. And so, again, I'm grateful to all those folks who've helped us at so many different junctures throughout these last 6 years. It's sometimes a thankless job, especially when somebody calls you, with an hour to spare and says, "I can't make it tonight," and we were going to record 3 shows and do all that stuff, and then everybody's scrambling, and of course, I'm saying, my time is at a premium. We have to have 3 guests. We have to do 3 shows, and it's a thankless job. But I'm grateful for all the people who helped to make it happen, both here at the station and just there. I also want to say thanks to Mercy for underwriting us for all these years. They believed in the show. It's part of their community betterment plan, because some of those Mercy Minutes and stuff are about things that we have a community health plan on, and some of the things we want to move the needle on in terms of making our community better and healthier. And of course, it's not just Mercy, but all the folks who are involved with our coalition to help improve the health in our community betterment plan for the whole larger region. And it's actually across several regions, because those community betterment plans are in many of our viewing areas. What I'd like to do in the last part of the show is to talk about what I would consider some of, for me, the personal highlights have been over the course of the last 6 years. Again, one of the fun things is that I've gotten to meet so many other religious leaders from the area. It's been fun having on members, leaders from churches that we're all busy on a Sunday morning. We're all busy, at this point in time, most of the time in our own churches and preaching and teaching and doing what we all do on Sunday mornings. And the show has been fun because it's gotten me a chance to meet some of my brothers and sisters in ministry across the region who love what they do as much as I love what I do. And so I'm grateful to all of them for trusting me enough, and trusting them that when they came on, I wasn't going to try to pick a fight or I wasn't going to try to embarrass anybody or to do those things. Again, we don't always agree on all those things. If we all agreed on everything, well, there'd just be one church, wouldn't there? And there'd only be one preacher, and of course, I'd be the right one. Yeah, but we all think that, and if we didn't believe what we were doing, we wouldn't be where we are. But I'm grateful to all of them for doing some of this. That's always been a highlight for me. It's been working with, and again, I'm going to give special kudos to Aaron Brown, who was the former pastor of St. Paul's United Methodist Church, because Aaron was the one who, whenever I really wanted to talk about something that was a little bit more out there theologically, and other people would like balk at, oh my gosh, I don't know that I can come on, or I want to come on and talk about that. Aaron was always game, and I will tell you that crazy man would also come up with some of the most interesting topics that I would have never dreamed about tackling. And I just say, hey, you haven't been on a while. Why don't you come on and we'll talk about something? You got a while here to talk about something in particular. And one day he actually said, let's talk about the Trinity. And I'm like, you're crazy, but why not? We talked about our different beliefs in the Trinity, or what that means, and I loved some of those moments. So again, I will say that Aaron has some place of preference in terms of the different ministers who's been on, but he represents the best of all of them, and I was grateful for all of that, and grateful for all the shows that we were able to do with him. One of the other things that I've always enjoyed about the show is getting to pick some of the topics that I think sometimes stretch us as a community. I'll never forget, after, certain things would happen in the United States, murder of George Floyd, some of those things. After those things occurred, we wanted to step out in there and say, we got to talk about some of this stuff from a Joplin perspective. And so I was grateful when the chief of police came in and talked, because again, I didn't want to vilify the police. The police are good to us, and I love our Joplin police and all the other municipalities that I've worked in around here. They do such a fine job serving our community. But it was great to hear their perspective on law enforcement and the Constitution and what all that means and how we have to challenge ourselves to be better. So proud of our civil service people who would come in and do that. All the people who come from the city or the cities around who've come and talked about how much they love to serve Joplin or Carl Junction or Carthage or Lamar or Pittsburgh, Kansas. it's just amazing that we have so many people here in our, so many wonderful civil servants who love our greater community the way that they love it and want to serve it the same way that I know those religious leaders do, but from a different perspective, from a civil perspective. I'm grateful for all of that. I was always happy to bring in, again, back to that edginess of just some of that situation. That I wanted to bring in some of the our black leaders from our local community to talk about what they were experiencing, what they were feeling. Because I really just think sometimes we don't understand because we've not grown up in the same shoes that somebody else has grown up in. And I've always been so grateful for the way that they've approached it tenderly, but yet strongly, and said things like, that's why Black Lives Matter, and we got to do some of this stuff because we don't want any of this stuff to happen in our community. And it's okay. I really got to say that in all those times of stepping out on the edge, I've only received a couple of pieces of hate mail this whole time. And it makes me wonder whether you all sleep sometimes on Sunday morning while you're watching the show or you're drinking your coffee or whatever, whether you're just dozing off. But we've only received a few pieces of hate mail, through the years. And we just kind of tried to ignore them rather than, rise into the level of a fight. Again, I didn't expect everybody to agree with all of our guests. I didn't ever expect everybody to always agree with me. That's the fun about having different guests on with different perspectives. But again, it's been a real privilege to be here with those voices. And so I want to say thank you to all the guests that have come on through the years who've stretched my perspective, who have made me look at things that maybe I didn't want to look at. And I hope that we've made you look at some issues that you didn't want to think about, like last week's show on trafficking. We don't like to think about the fact that trafficking is going on in our area. We don't like to think about the fact that racial harmony is not something that we've really got down here in the Joplin area. I don't think we've got discord, but do we have harmony? I don't think so. And so that means we've got a lot more work to do. Do we have religious harmony? No. But hopefully, I'm still hoping and praying that the show has, over the course of the last 6 years, kind of just stretched the same way that my guest has stretched me. I hope it's stretched all of you. That's been one of my real prayers as we've done the show, that the show would stretch us all to just open ourselves to perspectives. Our LGBTQ brothers and sisters. Again, not everybody's going to want to rubber stamp everybody in that everybody wants in that community. But does it mean that we can't love each other? Does it mean that we can't agree to disagree on some things? Does it not mean that we can't still find a space for each other to some degree? Because that's, again, part of it for me is that, I'm a Catholic, and God knows we wrote rule books. But how do we learn how to live with each other in the concrete? And so I may not be able to witness somebody's marriage because that's not what my tradition does, but can I still recognize the fact that somebody else wants to do that, and I can recognize their civil right to do so and respect it even if I can't do the same thing? Can I at least learn from that perspective enough to say, okay, I at least understand what you're saying to me. May not be able to go to the same spot, but I at least hear you, and I understand your struggle as a brother or a sister. I understand what that's like if you've got a different skin color, or you've got a different orientation, or you've got a different political viewpoint, or you're a different part on the conservative liberal spectrum, or whatever it happens to be. I just hope that the same way that the show has stretched me over the course of the past 6 years, that maybe in some small way I've helped to stretch you a little bit. I gotta say, it's leaving this community, and again, I'll be gone for 6 weeks probably by the time you see this, but I gotta say it's harder. I hate leaving. I hate leaving the show. I hate leaving the show not knowing, not knowing its future, because I'd love to, if I had a magic wand, I'd wave it over somebody's head and say, you're gonna continue this show, despite the fact that it's gonna be a challenge and it's gonna be a pain in the neck for somebody else or whatever, but there's such joy in doing it too. There's such joy in and I think that's a joy in serving people. This is a way of serving the community, and it's one of those ways that Mercy does it in a way that's not typical, of what Mercy does, but it's typical in terms of them wanting to be of service to the community and our wanting to be of service to the community. So on behalf of the Catholic community, I hope the show was a bit of a love letter for all of you. I'm going to miss you all, and I'm going to get myself put back together here so that I can finish this, but we do have one more Mercy Minute coming right here, so I'm going to leave it to you, and we're going to go to the Mercy Minute just a little bit early because I'm going to get my act together so that I don't, hopefully not be crying. So watch this Mercy Minute, and we're going to be right back.
Blessings and greetings of Mercy to you. My name is Anna Nichols. I am a Sister of Mercy and currently the leader of Heritage and Spirituality at Mercy International Association. I love the fact that sisters throughout time have gone where they have been called to go, and they have often picked up ministries that they never intended to pick up. 25 years ago, there were 22,000 Sisters of Mercy globally. Today we're down to about 6,200 with Sister Rock and some of the others. But despite the fact there are 6,500 or 6,200 sisters left, there is an amazing number of women and men of Mercy who are working alongside us, and that continues to expand, and for me that is incredibly exciting. So as far as National Catholic Sisters Week, I really look at the legacy that they have passed on and the fact that so many women, men, young people are living Mercy today. That really is for me what's significant.
It's interesting. The Catholic Church has been praying in this area as Catholics since 1877. 135 years ago, the Mercies, the Sisters of Mercy, came to this community to teach at St. Peter's School. And then eventually they saw that the minors weren't getting all of the care that they needed here in our community. And many of them were dying on the way to Fort Scott to the hospital. And so they started a hospital. And I'm so proud to be a part of all that legacy. We still have 2 Sisters of Mercy here in the area. None of them are teaching our schools anymore, but one's retired and one's doing ministry out of our home base here. So to Sister Cabrini and to Sister Joan, thanks for coming and making a difference in the area. We're grateful for you and for all that you do for us and all that the Mercies have done for us for 135 years. I'm grateful to be a part of that legacy, grateful to be a part of your lives now for the last 6 years. Again, I can't tell you what's going to happen with the show. I hope it continues, but that means Mercy's going to have to do some scrambling to see whether or not they can keep this ministry going too. But thank you for allowing me into your homes on Sunday mornings. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your lives. I'm grateful to you. This is Faith in our hometown. God bless you all. I love you.
Thanks for watching. Faith in Our Hometown can be seen Sunday mornings at 6:30 and 9 a.m. on KSN. Brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.